This podcast is sponsored by ScienceBasedLearning.com. Discover a passion-driven language learning system that combines ebooks, audiobooks, and videos with the science of spaced repetition. Maximize your learning and retention today at ScienceBasedLearning.com.
The sequence of tenses and the subjunctive mood in Spanish. When learning Spanish, mastering the subjunctive mood is one of the most important and challenging aspects for English speakers. One key rule that influences the use of the subjunctive is how the sequence of tenses affects it. Understanding this relationship will make your Spanish more natural and grammatically correct, especially when forming complex sentences. Let's begin by explaining what the sequence of tenses means, and then see how it affects the use of the subjunctive mood. What is the sequence of tenses? The sequence of tenses refers to the logical and grammatical relationship between the tense of a main, independent clause and the verb tense in a subordinate clause. In English, this is often referred to as tense agreement. In Spanish, the sequence of tenses is particularly important because it determines whether you should use the subjunctive or indicative mood in the subordinate clause. In Spanish, if the verb in the main clause is in a past tense, preterite imperfect, past perfect, the subordinate clause will usually require the imperfect subjunctive or past perfect subjunctive when the subjunctive mood is triggered. Conversely, if the main verb is in the present or future tense, then the subordinate clause usually takes the present subjunctive or present perfect subjunctive. Examples illustrating the sequence of tenses. Present or future in main clause. Present subjunctive in subordinate clause. Quiero que vengas a la fiesta. I want you to come to the party. Es posible que llueva mañana. It's possible that it will rain tomorrow. Past tense in main clause. Imperfect subjunctive or past perfect subjunctive in subordinate clause. Quería que vinieras a la fiesta. I wanted you to come to the party. Era posible que hubiera llovido antes. It was possible that it had rained before. How the sequence of tenses affects the subjunctive. The subjunctive mood in Spanish expresses doubt, desire, emotion, necessity, or uncertainty. It often appears after certain expressions or verbs that trigger it, but the tense you use depends on the time frame established by the main clause. Main clause in present or future. Use the present subjunctive if the action is simultaneous or future. Use the present perfect subjunctive, haya plus past participle, if the action is completed before the main verb. Main clause in past, preterite, imperfect, past perfect. Use the imperfect subjunctive, e.g., hubiera, viniera, if the action in the subordinate clause happens simultaneously or later. Use the past perfect subjunctive, hubiera plus past participle, if the action in the subordinate clause happened before the action in the main clause. Common triggers for subjunctive that are affected by sequence of tenses. Some common expressions and verbs that require the subjunctive include: Quiero que, I want that. Es posible que, it is possible that. Dudo que, I doubt that. Esperaba que, I hope that. Me alegro que, I am glad that. No creo que, I don't believe that. When these triggers appear in the past tense, the subordinate clause typically switches to the imperfect or past perfect subjunctive accordingly. Exceptions and special cases. General truths and habitual actions. If the subordinate clause expresses a general truth or something habitual even when the main verb is in the past, the indicative may be used instead of the subjunctive. Example, pensaba que ella tenía razón. I thought she was right. Here, tenía is indicative because it's stating a fact as perceived. Independent use of present subjunctive. Sometimes, the present subjunctive is used even after past tense if the speaker considers the subordinate action to be still relevant or true now. Example: dudaba que todavía sea posible hacerlo. I doubted that it is still possible to do it. This reflects ongoing doubt, so present subjunctive C is used. Context overrides, sequence. Sometimes, for stylistic or emphasis reasons, speakers might choose a different tense or mood, but this is considered advanced usage and less common. Summary. To summarize the sequence of tenses rule affecting the subjunctive in Spanish. The tense of the main clause determines whether you use present or past forms of the subjunctive in the subordinate clause. When the main clause is present or future, use the present or present perfect subjunctive. When the main clause is past, use the imperfect or past perfect subjunctive. Exceptions exist, especially when expressing general truths or ongoing relevance. Mastering this rule is essential for naturally expressing wishes, doubts, emotions, or hypothetical statements in Spanish. Paying attention to the time frame and perspective of the speaker will help you choose the correct subjunctive form. If you want to develop your Spanish grammar skills further and understand subjunctive mood intricacies, learn more at sciencebasedlearning.com, where you can get detailed explanations and practice materials designed to help English speakers master Spanish efficiently. Get your copy of comprehensive guides and exercises at sciencebasedlearning.com to enhance your Spanish learning journey with scientifically proven methods. Sequence of tenses and the subjunctive mood in Spanish. A guide for English speakers. Learn how the sequence of tenses affects the use of the subjunctive mood in Spanish with examples, exceptions, and practical tips for English speakers. Spanish grammar. Subjunctive sequence of tenses. Spanish learning. Grammar tips. Language rules. Spanish grammar lessons.